So we are starting the second panel of the day on the topic of architecture and dissonant heritage. And we have three presenters today, and we are going to make a small shift in the schedule. So we are going to start with Anna Feu, and I want to present you Anna. So Anna Feu Jordana is an architect specializing in heritage restoration. She holds a degree in architecture from the Technical School of Architecture in Valles from 2005, and a PhD in technology in architecture, restoration, and refurbishment of buildings from 2017. She was awarded cum laude for her thesis on the construction and structural integrity of Catalan Baroque churches. She's a co-founder of Feu Godoy in Solsona. This is an architectural studio established in 2009, and the practice combines professional projects, teaching, and research with a strong focus on restoring historical identity in sensitive or overlooked sites. Their work spans heritage interventions, public buildings, housing, public spaces, and landscapes. Since 2021, Anna has been part of the teaching team at the Université Internacional de Catalunya and is contributing her experience in historical heritage and conservation. So Anna, we are looking forward to your presentation.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'll kick off my presentation. Thank you so much for your introduction. I will be telling about a village called Corbera, where we were lucky enough to intervene to consolidate this village. It's a project that started in 2021, and just now we've finished the works of one stage, not completely, but they're almost finished. The old town of Corbera in 1936, before it was bombed during the Spanish Civil War, it had a population of around 1,900 inhabitants, and its main economic activity was agriculture. This village had its shops, services, main buildings, and heritage sites. And in 1938, in July, the German Condor Legion bombed Corbera d'Ebra. Later, on September the 4th, the front moved down the Ebro River, and then Franco's troops continued besieging the town. 1/3 of the town's buildings were damaged by the bombings, and gradually the inhabitants abandoned the town or the village and moved to settle in other areas. This meant that all of the buildings gradually were left abandoned and fell into a decay. This is the state of the village after the bombings, when the population started to leave. So what did this mean? I mean, it meant that in red you can see the areas affected by the bombings, that is, the buildings that were hit by the bombs. And in gray color you can see all of the buildings that were still standing after the bombing, but that also fell in disuse because of the people moving away. Just to give you an idea, a couple of images. In 1938, you see a picture of Corbera d'Ebra when the village was inhabited before the bombings. After the bombings in 1972, many of the buildings were still standing, as you can see in the center image, and in 2025, these buildings that were still standing in 1972, they're no longer there, or there are only just a few remains left. Another example is this image from 2009, and in 2021, the same building was like this, and the same happened in all the town center. The town center was declared heritage site of national interest, and there's like a void with a few remains still standing, very few, because nothing has been done over the years. And thanks to the will of the people who are motivated by the events of the Civil War and wanted to explain them. This image is highly representative, and I really like it because it shows how the new village started to be constructed around the old village under the auspices of Regiones Devastadas. And this new village led to people leaving the old town. So it kind of was erased from the map. It's as if they'd pulled out the pages of a book because no one wanted this to be seen. To this we need to add that around the church, where's the pointer? Well, I'll explain. If you look, the church is the largest rectangle, and around the church they try to erase the old urban layout, and they planted pine trees around it. And now this area is known as the Pine Wood because of this. Okay, so that's the church here. So all around the church, what happened was that they started to grow pine trees to try and erase the memory, and so the picture we have today is this one here. So the village has basically disappeared. There are some remains left, fewer and fewer every day, because nothing is being done, or very little is being done to preserve them, and we hope and wish this will be the start of something that will continue. So we see that there are less and less remains left. There are few survivors of the Civil War, so there's a loss of memory, and if we add this, it's very dangerous, of course. It takes us towards a collective amnesia. I mean, yes, we have texts, but there are some events. There's a whole narrative around these facts, and if all of the witnesses die, we'll lose this memory, and we'll lose many important details. So we realized that we needed to intervene in this empty space. So what did we do? Well, how can we intervene in the absence of buildings? So the first thing we did was to come up with a detailed diagnostic of what was left. So we carried out an inventory of the standing buildings or the remains, whether it was a wall or any other structure, the types of pavement. We did an in-depth inventory that allowed us to come up with an diagnosis of the state of these remains to then come up with a proposal. Through this proposal, we created a pathway so that the memory remains, so that people know that there was a population of 1,900 inhabitants with shops, with heritage sites. So the remains of the old streets needs to be recovered. If you go to Corbera, you can't really grasp the dimension of the village. You don't know where the original streets were. And in order to get an idea of the events that happened there during the Spanish Civil War and after, when it was abandoned, you need to have an idea of the town layout. So dealing with the whole of the old village wasn't possible. There was no budget to do it all at once, so we divided the project in phases. We done the first phase, phase 1, which is the one you see here in purple. That is the intervention we carried out. So in phase 1, we again came up with a diagnosis of what is included in phase 1 in this part of the old village, and with all this knowledge, we then came up with criteria for action, and most of them are archaeological in the sense of recovering the old layout of the streets, looking at the existing elements, cleaning them up, and acting based on archaeological criteria. Here we see a cobbled street, precisely to highlight the original elements. When it comes to the existing walls or the remains of the walls or the streets in places where they've been completely erased, here you see this picture here. The layout of the street and the wall had vanished to an extent that they'd planted some olive groves, and to not falsify history, we found the foundations of the wall, and it followed the sense of the street on each side. But in order to avoid errors, we said, okay, we need to build a banister if we want people to be able to walk along here, to know that there was a street if we don't know the actual boundaries. We did many tests to try and look at how we could build a banister here. We wanted to minimize the impact. If our goal is to give life to these remains, we wanted to avoid using any architectural structure that could outplay the vestiges or the remains. So after many tests, we came up with a design, a minimalist banister, and you can see it in this image, so that it doesn't overpower the remains. There are some technical requirements because it has to support some strength, but we wanted it to be as discreet as possible. So here again you see the banister. It's the same banister. Just for you to understand how we studied this, we came up with trials on what it would look like, and we're quite satisfied because at the end the impact is even lower than what we had envisaged in the model. So we are slightly worried about what would happen with the final design, but we're pleased with the outcome. When it comes to the walls, I mean, there are a whole series of walls that could collapse, pushed by the wind. So what we came up with here was a way of consolidating these structures. Some of them still shape the streets and give us an idea that the buildings here were of a certain height. But of course, these remains have only one stone wall, which is quite thin and fragile, and especially when we consider the power of wind. So we tried positivizing this by showing the old layout of the plots, and then we said, well, there's something that can help us, that is the walls that close off the facade. These middle walls are useful to guarantee stability for these walls, and we did know where they started off from. We could see this at the base of the middle walls. So where they were missing, in order to reinforce these structures, we built the middle walls with the same stones that we found on the ground. We didn't have to bring in new materials other than stainless steel reinforcements, so that people can see that it's an addition to make it different from the original walls. And we used the minimum elements that could be reversible. And here you see the pictures during the works. And as I said, the aim was to leave the remains in ruins so that people can understand why the village was abandoned after the bombings and all the subsequent events. Here we see another structure with a non-invasive reversible intervention. And we also acted following criteria to make the new structures as least visible as possible. From the facade, you can only barely see them. This is a picture of the works, and when you walk through this area, you can barely perceive the new elements. And we wanted to maintain a dialogue with the chaos, with the standing remains. We wanted these structures to help us to keep a dialogue so that they didn't mismatch with the environment. They're also reversible. They are bolted into the ground, so if someone ever comes with a better intervention, they'll be easy to disassemble, meaning they're reversible. Here you can see these aerial structures where the walls are higher. Using tensors, they allow to reinforce all of these walls, and we see this here. And this is the end result with this intended goal of making the absences visible. On the other side, you can barely see the reinforcement elements, and also there's a part of the action that we weren't able to complete because of the lack of budget. It's this part here in red. Why? Because while there's a part of ruins, or it would involve dismantling this upper part, and it has to be done carefully to not damage the facades. The facade walls are in a precarious situation and unstable, so we'd have to pull down these parts to consolidate the facades. And here we see the structure in red, which is the action that wasn't completed. It seems like maybe we will find budget and to be able to do this to complete phase 1 and to ensure that it can be visited in a safe way. So, what are the conclusions of all of this? Well, fine-tuning and through many trials, I think we worked with a multidisciplinary team. There were archaeologists, historians, architects, engineers. With the engineers, we had difficulties because they were planning structures that were very bulky, and we wanted to make it discreet. Luckily, we were able to think about things and rethink them, and we came up with a minimalist intervention that is very respectful and elegant, I'd say, even, that we think, after thinking about it, can adapt to a budget that doesn't need big investment. So with all of this in mind, and bearing in mind that the structures in Corbera Debra are very precarious, I never know how this beam is still there stuck into the wall. It's a challenge per se. So we often wonder, okay, so who is maintaining ignorance here and for what reasons? That's all. Thank you.
Very interesting, really.
Thank you.
Thank you. We go with the other presentations, and we do questions at the end, right? So let me present you Camille Sepulchre. She's a PhD student in architecture from the University of Louvain in Brussels, Belgium. And she worked 5 years as a practitioner, both in private and public sectors, in architectural offices in Brussels before starting her PhD. She is interested in institutional architecture with a focus on places of confinement. The title of her PhD project is Towards a Livable Architectural Design of Places of Interest, Total Institutions Through the Lens of the Ethics of Care. And we will have the presentation in a second, right?
Yes,
for sure.
We can hope for it.
That's great. But if we're, in the meantime, while we're waiting, maybe we can get some questions to you. I don't know if can we use the translation? Yes. So I have a question. Actually, I can start.
Okay.
So is it now visited, the site? Is it visited? Are there people visiting?
Yes. Sí, la gent va a visitar, sí, actualment.
Yes, there are people visiting. Some places are closed off because they are not safe enough to be visited. But some parts are visitable, yes. And we do have visitors. And it's really interesting. And the church, there is an architectural intervention that is beautiful and it's worth visiting, yes.
We are having the presentation now?
I don't know if you hear me. with the microphone.
I just want to add one consideration. That Corbera d'Ebre, here in Catalonia, is the only memory site, memory place, or memory vestige that is under protection.
Oh.
When she mentioned Becil in Catalonia, it means bé cultural d'interès nacional. We have the local protection, Becil, no? Because with L, interest local is under protection of the municipality, like this prison for the city council, or I don't know, maybe a bunker of the Spanish Civil War or the Second World War in the Pyrenees Mountains. These city councils or small could protect with Becil, but this is the only one that we have in Becil.
With national significance.
Yeah. And then and we have a kind of two places in Spain similar than Corbera d'Ebre. The biggest one is in Belchite, also in Aragon region, and the second one it's like Corbera d'Ebre. And for the first place, and with this strong, strong power of history and of the violence, the drama, the Spanish Civil War, etc., etc. There is a lack of the interventions. There is a lack and a kind of abandon of the place until quite now. But to be honest, Anna, I must say that the first idea of the whole project of this parcours de mémoire on the village, it's about 7 million euros. And the competitions who the government put on the table, it's about 100 only. So this is the difficulties. So my congratulations to Anna and his team, and her team, sorry, because it's double effort, not only with the place that is very complicated to work on. It's also with political populism memory and on heritage to do low cost. Here it's always low cost. We are working always with low cost. Sorry, excuse-moi.
No problem.
Thank you very much.
Okay, so sorry for the little delay. So my name is Camille Sepulchre, and I'm very happy to be with you today. So thank you for the invitation. So I'm a PhD student in architecture, and as I'm in my first year of PhD, I won't be presenting any results today, but more presenting some questions and reflections that I'm interested in. So I'm mostly interested in the architecture of places of confinement, as prisons, hospitals, asylums, but more or less all the places that are characterized by a big disconnection from society. So this interest began during my master thesis when I worked on the influence of prison architecture in the reintegration process of its inmate into society. And then I worked in different architectural offices, and then I wanted to pursue this work by starting a PhD on the architecture of total institution, and more precisely on the architecture of places of internment in Belgium. So these places are for mentally ill offenders, so people that are recognized non-responsible of their crime due to their mental state. And I wanted to interest myself to this precise topic because of the vulnerability of its users and the extended period of time, at time indefinite, that they will spend in these kind of institution. So these two conditions make the spatial dimension very significant, and that's why I decided to start working on it. So today, to try to respond to a bit of the dissonant heritage topic, which is not really mine. I will try to speak about the dissonance I find in the architecture I analyze, and I will analyze today and present the historical aspect that we can find behind Asylum architecture. So I will start with an historical overview to see the evolution of ideas and belief about mental illness throughout the different periods, and then to see the influence of these changing ideologies in the architecture of psychiatric institutions. So we will go through a case study. This is the Charenton Asylum that is located near Paris. And I chose this study case because it was one of the first time that architecture was intentionally designed for psychiatric care. And then we will see the Pharmakon behind the Charenton Asylum. So for those who are wondering why I chose the word Pharmakon, I will just detail a bit more later in the presentation. And then I will conclude with a bit of the dissonance I found in this architecture. So starting with the Middle Age, the ideology behind mental illness, there was a big sort of an ambiguous status because it was seen both as a medical condition and a moral or religious issue linked to sin. But insane people were publicly exposed and often viewed as curiosity or entertainment, not always feared. So they were mostly at the time cared for by their families or religious communities, but there were no architecture dedicated to these populations since they were integrated inside the society. And then moving on to the Renaissance, in a special context, since it was after the Black Plague, there was a new fear that emerged and the society grew increasingly anxious about difference. So madness began to be seen a bit dangerous and threatening, so there began to be a need to confine the difference and the mad people. So we started confining them in various institutions, religious spaces, prisons, or even all military towers, like we can see on the slide, because these towers were not used anymore, and they were really coercive. We can see these 7 meters thick wall, and they were used just to lock up people. So moving forward to the mid of the 17th century, we arrived into the Great Confinement, like Foucault calls it. So in the context where isolation and confinement intensified with the creation of the Hôpital Général in 1666 in Paris, to gather all kind of marginalized groups, including the insane. The purpose, of course, at the time was control and segregation, but not treatment. And the architecture was just no specific design, because confinement took place in very, very large structure that had enough space to isolate the different kind of marginalized population. So here we can see two very famous places in France, La Salpêtrière, which host mostly women, and Bicêtre was the equivalent for men's. So finally, at the end of the 18th, at the beginning of the 19th century, we enter a phase, it was in the Enlightenment era, and we start having different doctors specialized in mental treatment that were alienist thinkers. So I just put the most famous name, Colombier, Tenon, Pinel in France, but also Tuke in England. And so they started promoting humanist, rational approach to mental illness, with the rise of a moral treatment and the need to start considering the moral treatment rather than the physical treatment to cure mental illness. So in calm, structure, and compassionate care. In France, in 1838, we have a law that say that each department in France has its own psychiatric hospital. And so that's when we had this emerging need for adapted asylum design. And not only they wanted an adapted design, but they also seen the architecture as a way to cure mental illness. So a curing machine. So that brings us to our study case, the Charenton Asylum architecture, a healing machine. So this place was founded in 1641 it was a religious institution founded by the Brothers of Charity. And it began to host insane in part of the institution during all these years and throughout the different contexts that we've just seen in the previous slides. And then in the 19th century, with the arriving of those alienist thinkers, Esquirol, that was a student from Pinel, arrived at Charenton as the chief doctor and proposed a new plan building on these different theories that alienists were developing in the former years. And so that led to a complete reconstruction of the Asylum, and that's what we are going to try to analyze together. So before the complete reconstruction, we've seen that the plan kind of evolved because there was more and more insane people arriving, but there were no really adapted architecture, just more and more buildings. And then from 1850 to the 19th century, we've ended up with a completely new Esquirol plan. So the alienist recommendation in architecture were really clear about 3 points. So it was the site location, and then for the plan, the need for isolation and the need for classification. So as the site of Charenton, it needed to be located in a rural area, isolated, so it's outside of the Paris urban center. It needed to have water access. It's located really near a small part of La Seine. And that it needed to be really close to nature, to be able to enjoy the landscape, the calm for the mental ill people that were housed in it. It also needed to be elevated so we could see the best part possible of the landscape, and also that we could have the feeling of freedom, even though it wasn't really the case. So they introduced a key distinction between isolation and internment. So internment in the former years, that was a social measure removing the individual from society. And that was really about concerns for public safety or control. And they explained that their vision was really different. It was isolation. It was a therapeutic condition to provide a calm, controlled environment and to help the patient reconnect with themselves. So it was really a space designed to support healing. As for the plan, it was really important to have an independent building and not to be in some kind of attached to another institution. And to be an independent building, we need a central building with administrative services and staff accommodation. On both sides of this central building, we needed some separate blocks to accommodate the insane, and that's where we kind of see the all kind of classification. So men were supposed to be on the left side and women on the right side, and then all different blocks could gather the insane, but with the different disease, and from the more furious to the more calm. So they were asking for accommodation in U-shape, connected by covered walkways, where we could find then a central courtyard for each, and they couldn't see each other between all different separate blocks. We could have the individual accommodation on the side, and then the shared rooms at the back of those U-shapes. And then the fourth path was open on the open gallery to be able to see the landscape. So in the theoretical plan, there are also a workshop in the middle, But we will see that in we will see later in Charenton that we don't have those workshops. But this is a real theoretical plan, how it was made by an architect after Esquirol theoretical project. And so we can really see the central building, the different separate blocks, and the workshops in the middle. And then this is just the small particularities that we can find on the Charenton Asylum. So he took advantage of the topography in order to orientate all the U shape in the same way, so they can all benefit with the same orientation. And then there were no workshop in the Asylum because they were able to go work in the field nearby. So that's the final plan of Charenton. And on this image you can see the topography that I was just explaining. So that was the argument that were explained by the different alienists at the time. And now I wanted to give maybe another analysis, seeing other aspects that we can also point out. So the Pharmakon is an ancient Greek word that can be translated as both remedy and poison, and so it carries two opposite meanings at once. So we previously seen all the good advantage that we could find to put the site location outside the city and in the rural area. But then it is also a good way to protect society and a way to increase marginalization across those populations, and it's a very also difficult social disconnection. There is also, of course, economical aspects, as the field there were really cheaper as for the construction. And as I said also earlier, they were able to work in the field, in the rural area. As for the elevation of the site, it of course creates this illusion of liberty. And there is, of course, behind that a mean to hide the physical limits. But I'd say this illusion wouldn't last so long. And about the fact that they've seen two forms of confinement, so many differences between isolation and internment, we can ask ourselves if there is really so much differences, as they are really, really beneficial for society, but then isolation and internment share a lot of different characteristics. As for the plan, this classification, this intensified marginalization, this U-shape was also an easy way for one people to have an eye on all the different patients at the same time. So that's why I took another plan now that is also designed by another architect, following the same theoretical aspects for Asylum, so for a curing machine. But I don't know, but it seems like it also looks like other things that some of you may know. But indeed, we can still recognize a central building, different separate blocks, individual accommodation. So it looks a lot like a panopticon. So as a conclusion, I will just bring a bit of reflections of mine, and maybe we can share after all. So this architectural dissonance, because these compelling similarities, between the healing machine and the punishing machine, the prominence of social control and security often outweighs other design intention, as we can see. And then also the dissonance between the concept and the experience. In the design space, the creation by the architects and the doctors with very specific goals, and then to put that in contrast with the lift space and how occupants experience the space, often differing from the original design intention. So I took just an extract from, there are a lot of written sources of former inmates in Charenton, And here I just took this abstract. I am too weary of life to invent the gloomy things I recount, not without painful indignation, but with a clear conscience and with the sole honorable and so legitimate aim of finally unveiling the hideous Charenton, written by a former inmate of the Charenton in 1870. I think that's very important, and that's also what forced me to include some field work in my research. And so I'm actually currently doing a field work in the psychiatric annex of a prison in Belgium to really go and meet with the different internees. And then finally, another dissonance between the ideological evolution and the architectural stagnation. So, because this is the Asylum of Charenton right today, that has changed name. It is now the Heiskirol Hospital, but still hosts psychiatric residents. And it would be odd to say that there are no evolution of ideologies since the 19th century, but yet it's difficult to see it appears in the architectural environment. So I will end this for today, but thank you for your attention.
Thank you for the presentation, Camille. I really learned a lot. And it's, I mean, what are the different types of architecture of mental health? It's really, really interesting. Thank you. And this is the beginning of the PhD. I'm looking forward for there is a lot more to come. Good. And is Viktor with us already? Okay. You're Viktor. Good. So let me just first shortly introduce Viktor. Viktor Janák is a Czech historian and museum professional, currently serving as a director of the Zámeček Memorial, right? Yes. In Pardubice, yes. In the Czech Republic. His academic interests encompass the political and ethical developments in Central Europe during the 20th century, with a focus on World War II and the resistance movements against Nazi occupation. So, Viktor,
thank you very much.
The floor is yours, yeah.
And thank you, first of all, thank you for having me here. It's a really honor, so thank you, Oriol, David, and rest of the Euron team. I also thank all of the speakers which speak before me, because all of they say I will be basically repeating on our exact memorial. So as you can see, I will be talking about some kind of debate if our memorial is dignified memorial or if is it a concrete monster, as you can see in the picture. Well, let's get started. A lot of pictures will be AI generated. You have their description. Our story starts as a Nazi executioner ground, and as we know, our republic, Czech Republic or Czechoslovakia, has some kind of challenges with the regimes, the Nazi regime, then the short part of freedom, then communist regime, then short, or I hope so, that it will last forever, this type of freedom. So every regime has its way to have with the memorial or with the place. The Nazis, they basically built execution ground here, and they want to forget it because it was executioner ground for Czech resistance. So they want to forget our resistance to basically disappear because there was the rulers. In the second part, there was a short time for commemoration, you know, between the 1945 when the war ended, and 48 when the communist regime was installed. So there was a short time for a commemoration and some kind of, I would say, democratic or objective narrative But as we know, the communists rule over our country and also through the Pardubice, and they basically start changing the narrative. Here I follow up the beautiful presentation by Madame Ivanovna, because the Buzludzha was hyped up by communist regime. Here, on the other hand, because the resistance which was executed on our grounds was resistance connected with England, with the France. There was basically helping paratroopers which killed Reinhard Heydrich, the Nazi top man in the Czech Republic, or Protectorate Böhmen und Mähren. So the communists wanted to for the place to disappear, basically. It's kind of work. The place went into the oblivion, but few of, I would say, enthusiasts built a little memorial or monument, as you can see, the building between the trees, and small museum. And they built it, but fenced the whole area, and it was not possible to go there anytime. Basically, they build it and use it for propaganda. So instead of remembering the resistance, there will be like marches for 1st of May or for a revolution, a Russian Revolution commemorative act in October, I think. So basically, the resistance was forgotten. Then we have, of course, the year 1980, 98, yeah, where the democratic revolution, the Velvet Revolution, took place, and now we are starting, or in those times they are starting to reappearing. This place is starting to reappearing. We just starting to not rewrote the history, but just write the history, because in communist era there was only one book, for example, written about the paratroopers or the group of resistance in Pardubice. But it took a long time for revitalization. After, I think, it's 30 years, in the 2021 or 2017, a historian have an idea why to not commemorate those brave people, why we should commemorate only the Lidice Memorial, which was the symbol even during the communist era. And so we stand in front of questions which was drawn here by Mr. Rico, how to commemorate. Should we torn down the memorial or the old monument, or should we just rewrite history? Fortunately, the city of Pardubice was blessed by God, or I don't know by what, but they have architecture competition, actually. They didn't decide just from scratch, so they have a competition for architects who wants to attend to change the place or revitalize the place. We have, I think, 8 or 9 proposals. Some of them want to, build a new structure with a museum, destroy or dismantle the old monument, as you can see on those two. There was even some kind of architecture without exhibition, without the proper context, just, I would say, change the old monument to the new monument. As I say, some of it's kind of architectural, very nice, but this was not what the city wanted. Some of them just made some kind of adjustments to the old memorial. Some of them have even the exhibition, as you can see here, or let's save the memorial or monument and put some kind of structure without the exhibition. And I think finally we are at the winning proposal. This is the one, and here we are at Mr. Hoheinzel, I think, because as you said before, a lot of money for a hole in the ground. This was one typical argument of our citizens, because one of the biggest mistakes which was made by the city was that there was, I would say, architectural discussion. There was a discussion about historical, so academic discussions, but not discussion with public. They just brought it up like basically done things. So there was a little bit of, I wouldn't say disappointment, but some of the people, as we spoke before here, or I think Mr. Rico spoke before here, that sometimes it is not easy to change things. Even I think Ivanova said about it. So we have a, I would say, winning project, and now another argument was starting: the architect versus the construction workers, and of course versus me, because I was another part, because architect, sorry ladies, has a plan, has a vision, but you have to use the building, so we have some kind of argument, but I have to say that our architects was very willingly to change some things, but other things I would say that no. And now we can see the current state. Basically, the old monument, which is on the left side, stays, and the new, I would say, construction of memorial of our exhibition, it's laying underground, and basically the idea was to following up the lines of the old memorial, and not to, I would say, conquer or be on the opposite side, but follow up the idea of monument from 1949, I think. The whole building is from concrete, as you can hear the concrete monster sometimes in Pardubice still. And the old one is from, I think, special granite from Žumberec, which is kind of pink. And I know that the architects want to continue with the Žumberecký granite, Žumberecká žula, but they couldn't, because the quarry, all of the quarries are closed, and basically the area of the quarries is now protected by state nature. It's some kind of nature heritage there. So after we opened, there was a little bit of anger, as you can see on the picture, and there was some kind of unsatisfied, I would say, people. Mostly, or most of them was kind of conservative. They didn't want to continue. They told us that basically the monument is enough, but we think that monument isn't enough, because when we started to work, the organization, we have some kind of, I would say, question to the public of Pardubice. Do you know what is the Zámeček Memorial? And almost 80% didn't know, even inhabitants of the city. The city, for example, I think it's around 100,000, citizens. So a lot of them didn't know. Now with the exhibition, we have a lot of visitors, but also a lot of schools, and you know how it is with this kind of history. You have to educate people, and then maybe build up the democratic society from the scratch, and then maybe you should avoid it in the future. We unfortunately we saw how is it in Ukraine, so maybe the education is not enough. So after a few, I would say, disappointed citizens, some kind of media storms was around us. It was basically the debate, which is on topic of my presentation. It is a concrete monster, or it is the decent memorial, decent place with dignity. I let you decide for yourself. I hope that you will be on our side of dignified memorial. But I think, and it was here, it was said here, that everyone has to have their opinion. So if you are, if someone even in Pardubice isn't satisfied with the result, it's okay. It's democratic. I think it's never be changed, because all of this concrete will be very tough to dig up, actually. But I think that we change the place for better. So, as you can see, I'm sorry for the pictures. It's from the maps. It's not easy to obtain the permission for a drone picture, because we are in basically industrial zone. Because, as I said, communists want to for this memorial to disappear, so they built big industrial zone around it. So on the old picture you can see a lot of concrete, it was concrete places, just like a parking plats or park plats, yeah. So we just took or we make it green, basically. Even the roof of the memorial is now green. It's also, I would say, ecological and economical advantage, because it should be basically meadows. It's not like cut grass, the English grass, it's meadows. So we are cutting it like twice a year. It keeps the water in the fields, or basically in those places. And of course there is a life. Before the Velvet Revolution, there wasn't life as human life, but also in nature. Now, because of this, we have a lot of, I would say, unwanted visitors, like insects, bats, or for example, rabbits. Sometimes find a way to the exhibitions. Even I think I saw some kind of deer. So that's part of which makes me happy, but also because we basically destroy the fences, destroy the surrounding fences. The area is now available for visitors 24 hours in 7 days. This has some disadvantages at nights, I admit it, but I must say that our visitors, even the night visitors, are very polite. There is not some kind of graffiti or something like that. There is some drinking, smoking illegal substances, but not so much troubling. And now you can see the interior. We basically took some art, as you can see on the right, from the old memorial and put it into the new one. So as you can see, it's a concrete building, and it underscores the unpleasant atmosphere and unpleasant topic of the memorial, which is war. As you can see here on the picture, we have some lectures, but usually there is a introduction movie or documentary about Memorial. There is also some kind of, I would say, white places, because our architects are really playful with the light, as you can see, because this is a room which is called, I would say, the Gestapo office, because a lot of crimes was, or not a lot of, but almost every crime at our memorial or at our place was doing by Gestapo. And of course, there are some dark places, even some, I would say, a little bit object with a little bit dissonant history, like, for example, here is the urns with the ashes of the victims. But for me, the most powerful room in the memorial is this one, because our exhibition do not stop in 45, in the winning year of war, but it goes further. We have to tell everyone that the war is living till now. You know, we are still dealing with some PTSD from the Second World War. We have some big topics in our republic, which is still returning for us. Is a Mnichov Treaty, München Treaty from start of the war, and so on. Here is also one of the art from the 68. I hope that I'm still in time. Yes, I am. So basically, we continue the architectonical way and make the place a little bit more living, I would say, which is, I think, goal for all of us to commemorate and also educate. So thank you very much for your attention. Just one thing, if you are interested, I have a few publications about our exhibition, so after this section you just contact me and I will give you them for free. But I have limited options, so it's not enough for everybody, sorry.
First come, first serve. Okay, I'm happy that we have also time for some questions. Not many, we have like 10 minutes, but yeah, do you have questions? Not only to Viktor, but to all three presenters today? Now is the moment. Yes, please.
I have a question. Thank you. I have a question for Camille. Did you saw the Gaillon prison near Paris that was destined to the alien,
Yeah.
the psychiatrist?
Yeah?
It will be
What's the name of the prison?
Gaillon.
Gaillon. No, never heard of it.
And so I have a remark. It's really surprising to see what prison do to the alienist system and what the alienist system do to the prison.
Mm-hmm.
I explained me you prisoned Hôpital Général.
Yeah.
And the system will concentrate the insane,
All kinds
of
different
person,
people.
prostitutes,
Poor peoples.
all peoples. We don't want to stay in the street. In this structure, they must do work.
Yeah.
And this obligation was a pillar in the prison system in England, in France, and all the prison was organized around the labor. Prisoner must to work. And it was the origin, it was in the structure, the Hôpital Général and Dépôt de Mendicité also. And so when we see the evolution and escarole plan project, we see the cellular system, not with Lebas, because the plan was not a plan of a prison, and Lebas was the architect who construct and organize the plan for the Petite Roquette, really a panopticon plan. And so we understand it don't reproduce the same for the Charenton. And so it's interesting to see the both.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, thank you. It was not a question, right? It was rather...
Another remark.
Yeah. Do you have other remarks or comments or ideas to share?
Sorry, I don't have a question for you, but for you, Professor Janák, do you have your monster and memorial, this memorial, is it a reference in other museum in Prague where they talk about the resistance or the Second World War? Did they, it's difficult with my English, sorry. Did they, is it exist a touristic travel in Czech Republic to know where are these memorials? Because I visit Prague and the prison of Prague with the prison museum in the prison of Prague. And they call about the Second War, the prisoners, the Gestapo horror, and I think it could be interesting when we are interesting about this period and to the memorial to know where going in Czech Republic.
Thank you for a question. I would love to have some kind of guide through the Czech Republic. There are some mentions, or I would say some project in start, but I would say that our republic has a big disadvantage. Our museum, I spoke, I don't know with whom, but we are not very cooperative. You know, we are not sharing our experiences because I would say as a nation we are very envious. You know, we envy each other, and we are not like capable. I'm, for example, one of few who can talk about our greatness in memorial, but also our, I don't know how to put it politely. So I would please, ladies, excuse me, our fuck ups, because if you share, then the other memorial could be better, and that's something I want as a historian, as a museologist, for our museology to be better. But we are on, I would say, each museum on our backyard, and we are playing solo. So there are some guided maps, but it's always like not completed, because there is another thing. The history of the Second World War in our country, it's still living. We are divided, I would say not divided so much, but there is, I would say, conservatives and the one who are more progressive. You know, for example, I would give an example, is about the victims. There are memorials which are telling people that all of the victims was heroes, 100%. You know, the black and white history I told. In our memorial, we say we have like 194 victims. Unfortunately, some of them was even the villains, but some of historians, they didn't like to hear that. So that's something, there's a big obstacle to cooperate with all of the museums, memorials about the war. But we have some kind, I don't know, it's a booklet, and there are basically I think it's called Footprints of Paratroopers. So it's mapping basically the places of resistance, of Western resistance. Yeah, but it's not so common, unfortunately.
Thanks for the question, and thank you to the presenters. We are going to have our coffee break now, and afterwards, after 30 minutes, we are going to have the third panel about exhibitions. And I will encourage the informal discussion and questions to start now in the coffee break. So thank you. Thank you to the presenters once again.